The October rain in Oregon's Willamette Valley fell like tears from a gray sky that had forgotten how to smile. In a cramped rental house on the outskirts of Portland, 22-year-old Dylan Matthews knelt beside his uncle's hospital bed, watching the man who had saved his life slowly slip away. Robert Matthews, a Vietnam veteran with weathered hands and kind eyes, struggled to breathe through lungs ravaged by cancer. The oxygen tank beside his bed hissed softly, marking time like a broken clock. Dylan held his uncle's trembling hand, feeling the weight of impending loss crushing down on his chest. The medical bill scattered across the kitchen table told a story of hope turned to desperation. $45,000 for the surgery that could save Robert's life. The insurance company had denied the claim twice, citing pre-existing conditions from Agent Orange exposure decades earlier. Dylan's paycheck from Henderson Lumber barely covered rent and groceries, let alone medical miracles. Dylan had been 15 when his own family threw him out for being gay. Robert had opened his door without question, offering love where others had given only rejection. Now, watching his uncle fight for each breath, Dylan felt the familiar sting of helplessness that had haunted him since childhood. The rain intensified against the windows as Robert's coughing fit shook the entire bed. Blood stained the tissue he brought to his lips, and Dylan's heart shattered a little more. He couldn't lose the only person who had ever truly accepted him. He wouldn't. That evening, as Dylan sat alone in the kitchen, surrounded by unpaid bills and unanswered prayers, a knock came at the door. The mailman stood on the porch, rain dripping from his cap, holding an envelope unlike any Dylan had ever seen. Heavy cream paper, sealed with red wax bearing an elegant letter H. Inside, written in formal script, was an invitation that would change everything. William Hartwell of Hartwell Estate, Napa Valley, requested his presence for a matter of urgent mutual benefit. The letter was signed with a flourish that spoke of wealth Dylan could only dream of. As thunder rolled across the Oregon sky, Dylan stared at the mysterious invitation. Desperation makes people consider impossible things, and sometimes impossible things are exactly what salvation looks like. He didn't know that in accepting this stranger's call, he was about to embark on a journey that would teach him love comes in forms we never expect, and that the most unlikely beginnings can bloom into the most extraordinary endings. If you're ready to discover how one desperate decision can transform everything, don't forget to subscribe to Heart Stories and let this tale of unexpected love unfold. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin with the darkest storms. The drive to Napa Valley took Dylan through landscapes that shifted from Oregon's rain-soaked forests to California's golden hills dotted with vineyard rows that stretched toward distant mountains. Hartwell Estate appeared like something from a dream, its Victorian mansion rising majestically above 500 acres of perfectly manicured Cabernet Sauvignon vines. William Hartwell waited in his study, a room lined with leather-bound books and family portraits spanning generations. At 45, he carried himself with the quiet dignity of old money, but Dylan could see something broken in his gray eyes. The man who had built one of Napa's most respected wineries looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. William gestured for Dylan to sit in an antique chair that probably cost more than Dylan made in 6 months. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken purpose, until William finally spoke with the directness of a man who had learned that time was his most precious commodity. He was dying. Liver cancer had spread beyond surgical repair, leaving him perhaps 8 months to live. His late wife Sarah had died 3 years earlier in a car accident. Their marriage one of convenience rather than love, producing no children. When William died, his gambling-addicted cousin Marcus would inherit everything, destroying in months what 5 generations of Hartwells had built. The proposal that followed was unlike anything Dylan could have imagined. William needed an heir, a biological child who could inherit the estate and preserve its legacy. But traditional marriage and natural conception would take years he didn't have. Instead, he offered Dylan a contract unlike any other. Through modern reproductive technology, Dylan would serve as a gestational carrier using an anonymous egg donor in William's genetic material. In exchange, Dylan would receive a $2 million trust fund, complete medical care for his Uncle Robert, and training in estate management that would prepare him to protect the child's inheritance until adulthood. The legal framework was complex but ironclad. California surrogacy law would protect all parties, and a carefully crafted will would ensure Marcus could never challenge the arrangement. William had spent months researching Dylan through his volunteer work at Portland's LGBT Youth Center, recognizing qualities of integrity and resilience that money couldn't buy. Dylan sat in stunned silence, his mind reeling between the absurdity and the desperate hope of it all. This wasn't love or romance. It was a business transaction dressed in the language of salvation. Yet as he looked at William, he saw not just a wealthy man buying a solution, but someone as lonely and frightened as himself. The phone call came as they spoke. Dylan's hands trembled as he answered, hearing the voice of Robert's doctor delivering the news he'd been dreading. His uncle had suffered another hemorrhage and been rushed to Providence Portland Medical Center. Without immediate surgery, they had perhaps days, not weeks. In that moment, staring at the man who held his uncle's life in his hands, Dylan made the choice that would reshape his destiny. Sometimes survival requires us to step into the unknown, trusting that the path we cannot see will lead us where we need to go. Love often begins not with passion, but with the simple act of two broken people choosing to help each other heal. The courthouse wedding in Sonoma County was a ceremony of necessity rather than celebration. Dylan wore his only suit, William dressed in understated elegance, and their witnesses were William's attorney and the court clerk who had seen stranger unions make more sense than traditional marriages. The gold band that slipped onto Dylan's finger felt like a door closing on his old life and opening to something entirely unknown. Hartwell Estate revealed itself slowly, like a secret garden awakening to Dylan's presence. The Victorian mansion built in the 1890s held 15 rooms filled with the antiques and art collected across generations. Uncle Robert recovered in a guest cottage surrounded by herb gardens, his cancer treatments at Stanford Medical Center working better than anyone had dared hope. The IVF process at UCSF Fertility Center was clinical yet profound. Dylan found himself carrying not just a child, but the hopes and dreams of a dying man who had spent his life preserving beauty for future generations. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, each doctor's visit confirming that new life was growing strong within him. William proved to be an unexpected teacher and companion. He guided Dylan through the complexities of viticulture, explaining how soil conditions and weather patterns affected the grapes that would become wine 5 years later. In the estate's library, they read together by lamplight, William sharing poetry while Dylan discovered a love for business management that surprised them both. Their conversations revealed two men shaped by loss and loneliness. William spoke of his marriage to Sarah, a union arranged by families rather than hearts, leaving both partners politely distant until death made their emptiness permanent. Dylan shared his own story of family rejection, the years of believing he was fundamentally unworthy of love, until Robert taught him that acceptance was possible. As Dylan's pregnancy advanced, something unexpected began flowering between them. Respect grew into genuine affection, and affection deepened into something neither man had expected to find. William attended every doctor's appointment, his protective instincts emerging naturally as he watched Dylan carry their child. Dylan found himself looking forward to their evening talks, the way William's face softened when discussing plans for their son's future. The Napa Valley harvest season brought charity galas and wine tastings where Dylan learned to move in social circles that had once seemed impossibly distant. Local vintners and their spouse welcomed him with surprising warmth, accepting this unusual arrangement with the kind of discretion that old money affords unconventional situations. During quiet evenings, as autumn painted the vineyards in gold and crimson, William and Dylan would sit on the mansion's wraparound porch, watching sunset light filter through grape leaves. These moments held an intimacy that transcended their contractual beginning, creating space for feelings neither man knew how to name. By the 7th month of pregnancy, when Dylan felt their son moving actively within him, both men had reached an understanding that neither dared speak aloud. What had begun as a desperate bargain had transformed into something approaching love. Not the passionate romance of fairy tales, but something deeper, built on mutual respect, shared vulnerability, and the miracle of creating life together against impossible odds. Yet William's health continued to deteriorate. his skin taking on the yellow pallor of advancing liver disease. Time was running out, and both men knew that whatever they had found together would soon be tested by the ultimate goodbye. Sometimes the most profound love stories are also the briefest, burning bright before fading into memory. Winter arrived in Napa Valley with El Niño rains that battered the dormant vineyards and kept the mansion's fireplaces burning constantly. William's condition worsened rapidly, his once strong frame becoming gaunt as the cancer claimed more of him each day. Yet his spirit remained focused on preparing Dylan for the responsibilities that would soon fall entirely on his shoulders. They spent hours in the estate office, William teaching Dylan the intricacies of wine production cycles, distribution agreements, and the delicate relationships with restaurant buyers that sustained their business. Dylan absorbed everything with desperate intensity, knowing each lesson might be their last together. On a particularly stormy January evening, as rain lashed the windows and the baby moved restlessly within him, Dylan found William standing before the fireplace, staring into flames that reflected the unspoken truth between them. When William turned, his eyes held a vulnerability that took Dylan's breath away. William confessed what they both had been feeling, but neither had courage to voice. What had started as a contract had become the deepest love either man had ever known. Not born of physical attraction or shared history, but forged in the crucible of mutual need and unexpected companionship. Dylan felt tears streaming down his face as he acknowledged the same truth, that this impossible arrangement had given both men something they'd never thought possible. 2 weeks later, as dawn broke gray and cold over the valley, Dylan's labor began with intensity that surprised everyone. At Napa Valley Hospital, William insisted on staying close despite his own failing health, his eyes never leaving Dylan's face as their son fought his way into the world. Baby William Jr. arrived after 8 hours of labor, small but perfectly formed, his cries filling the delivery room with the sound of new hope. When the nurses placed him in Dylan's arms, the baby's dark hair and strong features clearly marked him as a Hartwell. William Sr. touched his son's tiny hand with trembling fingers, his face glowing with a palm that transcended his physical pain. For 3 precious days, they were a family. William held his son for hours, singing lullabies his own father had taught him, making promises about the future their boy would inherit. He recorded videos for birthdays he would never see, writing letters to be opened when his son reached milestones that would mark his growing up. On the 4th day, as morning light filtered through hospital windows, William slipped away peacefully in his sleep. Dylan woke to find the man he loved motionless beside him, their newborn son sleeping peacefully in his arms, unaware that he had just become an orphan and an inheritor on the same quiet morning. The legal battle that followed was swift and decisive. Marcus Hartwell challenged the will with expensive lawyers from Skadden Arps, claiming fraud and undue influence. But William's preparations proved unassailable. The surrogacy was legally documented, the marriage legitimate, and the will ironclad. After 6 months of depositions and hearings, the California Superior Court upheld every provision, ordering Marcus to pay court costs for his frivolous challenge. Dylan emerged from the courthouse with baby William in his arms, legally protected and financially secure, but emotionally devastated by the loss of the man who had seen something worthy in him when the rest of the world had looked away. The estate workers and Napa Valley neighbors rallied around him with support that reminded him that belonging could be built, not just inherited. In William's private study, Dylan found journals filled with observations about their time together, reflections on love found late and lost too soon. The words revealed depths of feeling that William had been too reserved to express directly, showing Dylan that their love had been real for both of them, despite its unconventional beginning. Sometimes the most authentic relationships emerge not from perfect circumstances, but from the courage to be vulnerable when everything seems impossible. 10 years passed like seasons flowing through the vineyard rows, each harvest marking another chapter in the extraordinary life Dylan had built from the ashes of loss. William Jr. grew into a thoughtful boy with his father's intelligent eyes and his surrogate parents' compassionate heart, knowing his origin story not as shame but as evidence of love's ability to transcend conventional boundaries. Hartwell Estate flourished under Dylan's management. earning organic certification and recognition as one of Napa Valley's premier wineries. The success wasn't measured only in profits, but in the lives transformed through Dylan's leadership. Employee healthcare programs, educational scholarships for LGBT youth, and a community center in St. Helena demonstrated values that extended far beyond business achievements. Uncle Robert, now 75 and cancer-free, had become the grandfather figure William Jr. never had biologically but needed emotionally. Their daily walks through the vineyard provided continuity between generations, stories flowing from the old veteran to the young heir who would one day inherit not just land, but responsibility to use privilege wisely. Monthly visits to William Sr.'s graveside became sacred rituals, where Dylan and his sons shared memories and dreams with the man whose brief presence had reshaped their destinies. William Jr. understood his father not as a distant memory, but as a living influence in the values that guided their family's choices. When Dr. James Chen entered their lives through charity work at a San Francisco children's hospital, Dylan discovered that love could bloom again without diminishing what had come before. James, a pediatric surgeon with gentle hands and an understanding heart, brought laughter back to the mansion's halls while respecting the memory of the man whose portrait still graced the study wall. William Jr.'s approval of their relationship mattered more than social acceptance, and his enthusiastic embrace of James as a father figure proved that families could be built through choice rather than chance. The three men created new traditions while honoring old ones, showing that love multiplies rather than divides when welcomed openly. The California Wine Institute's recognition of Dylan's contributions came with an invitation to speak at their annual conference. Standing before hundreds of industry leaders, Dylan spoke not of business success but of second chances, of love found in unlikely circumstances, and of the responsibility that comes with inherited privilege. His words carried the weight of lived experience, touching hearts across the audience who recognized authentic wisdom born from struggle rather than entitlement. The standing ovation that followed wasn't just professional courtesy, but genuine appreciation for a story that reminded everyone present of love's transformative power. As sunset painted the vineyard in familiar golds and crimsons, three generations gathered around the mansion's dinner table. Dylan watched James help William Jr. with homework, while Uncle Robert shared stories from his own youth, and felt the deep contentment that comes from knowing love had won despite impossible odds. William Jr. announced his plans to study viticulture at UC Davis, carrying forward the family tradition with innovations that would honor the past while embracing the future. The boy who had started life as a contract baby had grown into a young man who understood his heritage as both gift and responsibility. Looking across the valley where it all began, Dylan realized that William Sr.'s greatest legacy wasn't the vineyard or the wealth, but the demonstration that love can emerge from the most practical arrangements when hearts remain open to unexpected possibilities. What do you think defines a family? Circumstance or choice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Heart Stories for more tales that prove love knows no boundaries. Sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as our most desperate moments.